I'm Dr. Heather Nelson, and today let's talk about why the mask is making your voice so tired. My best friend is a teacher, and a couple of weeks ago we were having a conversation about how many of her colleagues were complaining that at the end of the day, after talking through a mask for several hours, their voices were hoarse, they were tired, their voices hurt. I feel for you, but there's several reasons why that's the case, and I'm going to give you some targeted tips for combating each one of those. The first one, it's kind of obvious, but the mask makes your voice quieter. Now, before you just turn this off and ignore everything I'm going to say, I'm going to get a little technical and tell you why that's really important. We measure sound amplitude or volume in decibels, and decibels are on a logarithmic scale, which means rather than just a steady increase like height or weight or, money, cents, whatever, decibels are logs. And so when you have a 3 decibel increase, that's a doubling in sound pressure. Likewise, the opposite is true. If you subtract 3 decibels from your sound pressure, then you cut it in half. And so for me to raise my voice 3 decibels, I am doubling my sound pressure. And that's quite a lot of vocal energy that I'm having to use to do that. Now, a mask, depending on what kind of material it's made out of and some other factors, can attenuate or dampen your sound anywhere from 3 to 12 decibels. Whew. That's a lot. And so if you, just on the low end of that spectrum, if the mask takes away 3 decibels of amplitude, you're cutting your sound pressure in half, what's getting past the mask. And so if it happens to cut it down by 6 decibels, that's 10 times less sound pressure. And there's no way that you can simply speak louder in order to combat that much of a change. And so what do? You don't want to be talking louder all the time. You're just going to wear yourself out, and that's terrible for your vocal health. And so here's where I would call in backup. I'm going to drop a link in the description of this video to a personal amplification system that I think is pretty good. And you know how online shopping works. You just, click on the link and it'll show you some similar items and you can boop around until you find one that works well for you. But a personal amplification system is usually a head-mounted mic, maybe a lavalier, but head-mounted usually works pretty good because you can stick it right in front of the mask or even tuck it behind and then tape it with some medical tape so that it's good and sealed around your mask. And then that's connected to a speaker that you can clip on your belt or you can stick on the front of your podium or on the front of your desk and then crank that baby up. And you don't have to talk any louder. That thing does the work for you. That will make your voice louder without you having to wear yourself out. Even in non-pandemic times, this is a fantastic option for classroom teachers. And this might be something you want to talk to your administration about. Some administrations will purchase this for their teachers because voice problems are one of the main reasons why teachers call out sick. And so if we could keep your voices healthy, we could keep you in the classroom, and that makes everybody happy. And so a personal amplification system, you can get one for $35 to $40. You can get that, and if your administration doesn't pay for it, it's a tax deduction, but talk to your accountant about that. And so that can help raise your volume without you having to do anything. Now, the next reason why masks are really difficult is that they don't attenuate speech evenly. Put a link in the description for something we call the speech banana. And the speech banana shows how different sounds we make in speech and singing are at different frequencies. Our vowel sounds tend to be lower in frequency, and so they have longer sound waves and they tend to travel farther before they dissipate in air. Higher frequency sounds, consonants, particularly those unvoiced consonants like the t, p, k, s, those have shorter sound waves, and so they dissipate more quickly in air. And of course, the masks tend to dampen those higher frequency sounds more efficiently than they do with the lower frequency sounds. The problem with that is that those consonant sounds are what makes our speech intelligible. It's not necessarily that people can't hear you, it's that they can't understand you because those sounds that make our speech understandable are dampened. And so our speech just sounds muddy. And so to combat that, particularly if you've got a personal amplification system to help you out, all you need to do is put a little more emphasis in those consonants. And you don't necessarily have to say them any louder, just put a little more energy into them. A great vocal model for this is Patrick Stewart. He's been, over the course of the pandemic, doing some Shakespeare sonnet videos, and his speech is fantastic. Plus, you know, you just get to hear him reading Shakespeare, and that's pretty fun. But if you listen to how he emphasizes each of those consonants and really gives them a little bit of life, that alone can help those sounds to become more intelligible. You'll also notice that it will help a great deal to slow your speech down while you do that. There's another reason for that I'm going to get to in a minute. But if you put a little bit of extra oomph into those consonants, it will help your speech to be more intelligible, even with a personal amplification system. Now, the next reason, also pretty obvious, is that the mask hides your mouth. Yes. So if we think too that our brains process speech by both using the temporal lobe and the auditory system, but also our eyes with the occipital lobe, if we take half of that away, then our brain has to work really, really hard to make up the difference. If we think of our brains as being kind of like an engine, and both lobes together are a V8 engine, but if you take one away, suddenly you've gone from a V8 to a V4. It's going to take a lot longer to get up to highway speed. And so if you slow down your speech, it gives your listeners' brains a little more processing time to be able to figure out what you're saying. And so just by acknowledging that our brains are having to work harder, and it's going to take just a fraction of a second longer for the brain to figure out what you're saying, by slowing down your speech, you're working with the brain so that it can distinguish what you're saying. So, personal amplification system, more energy in your consonants, and the rate or speed of your speech. Those things can help you to save your voice, but also make you more understandable. I'm going to follow this up with a couple more videos. Another one that'll be coming will be of vocal first aid. Like, what do you do when your voice is just absolutely shot? I've got some tips for that. That'll be coming in the next few days. And then I'll follow it up again with some long-term strategies for keeping your voice healthy over the long term. Because believe me, we want your voice to stay healthy. I'm going to put my socials and ways to contact me in the description of this video as well. Please reach out if there's any questions that you have or any other way that I can support you. My heart is with you. You've got a super tough job right now. But if there's anything that I can do to help keep your voices in good shape so that you can make it to the end of this pandemic, I would love to be able to do that. So I hope you have a wonderful week of teaching. Take care of that voice.